have come today to hear more presenters. I think we're in for another very good session. Yesterday, we had some excellent things presented to us, and today we have even more good speakers. At dinner last night, thank you, Ricky Brown, it was suggested to me that there are even some more presenters that we should have, and I'd like to say that this is not the end of the discussion, but just perhaps the beginning. So perhaps we can have another opportunity to hear from even more areas of the state and hear from the people who represent the tourism industry, perhaps Tupelo and other parts of the state. So I hear you, and I appreciate the input. Good morning, Senator Jordan. Senior Senator from Leflore County, glad to have you here. I'm the junior senator from Leflore County. This morning, our first presenter, if you have your agenda, we need one for Senator Jordan, please.
Here you go, ma'am, sir.
We have a message from Ricky Brown, who is the president of the Mississippi Beer Distributors Association. So I'll ask you all to give your attention to him, please.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to address the committee. Tourism is a huge industry in the state of Mississippi, especially for the beer distributors in the state. They deliver to over 6,000 retail accounts throughout the state, and a lot of those are your bar and restaurants that the tourists use when they visit our great state. Alcohol has a real storied past in the state of Mississippi. The 18th Amendment, which created prohibition, was adopted and ratified in 1918. However, the state of Mississippi had already instituted their own repeal or instituted prohibition in 1910. So we were 8 years ahead of having prohibition in the state than the rest of the country. Then when the 21st Amendment was ratified in December 1933, one of the first bills that, and the 21st Amendment repealed prohibitions nationwide, one of the first bills of 1934 legislation took up was to legalize the sale of beer and light wine, and the governor signed it in the latter part of February of 1934, making beer and light wine legal in the state of Mississippi. Up until 1966, there were illegal bootleggers in the state that paid black market tax to the state. It was a 10% tax that the purveyors of spirits and wine paid to the state. Then the legislature, after the raid at Jackson Country Club, and brought the issue forward in the legislature in 1966, passed the legislation for local option for wine and spirits. And at that time, they put the ABC under the purview of the State Tax Commission and got into the business of being the sole wholesaler statewide in the state for the sale of wine and spirits to your package stores and to your bars and restaurants across the state. The Mississippi Beer Distributors, like I said, have been in business in 1934. Our association started in 1946. We were known for 70 years as a malt beverage association. Everybody thought we dealt with malt beverages, you know, like malt liquors and stuff like that. So about 5 years ago, our board changed our name to the Mississippi Beer Distributors Association, where you know exactly what my members do. And I've been at this quite a while. When I started, there were 45 owners in the state, 45 different beer distributors in the state. Now there are only 9 owners across the state, and they do a great job. They're all family owned. They're local business men and women that run their businesses. They have about 1,300 employees statewide. And they do a fantastic job. They're very involved in their local communities. They get involved with a lot of events, sponsorships of events, and stuff to help the communities. My members, along with the breweries that they represent, when a natural disaster happens, whether it's tornadoes or hurricanes that we're susceptible to quite often, they donate quite a bit of drinkable water in cans and stuff to the communities, and they've been doing this for quite a long time, so they're quite involved with the local communities. And like Larry Gregory was saying yesterday, when the legalization of gaming was adopted in the state in the early 90s, that created a lot more opportunities for my members to do more business, and it helps them keep people employed. We were very fortunate that the governor, when he started the COVID-19 shutdowns and requirements, that the beer business was considered an essential business and was able to keep everybody employed. Y'all have heard, for those of you that also serve on finance, you've heard, how the ABC their sales have grown exponentially during the pandemic. My members' business has some, but not to the extent that ABC has. So our industry, whether it's beer from my perspective or even from the state's perspective from wine and spirits, is really tied real closely to the tourism industry in the state of Mississippi, and it does provide a lot of different opportunities for our members to do a lot more business. So appreciate the time this morning, Senator.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Brown? Would you just briefly elaborate on the bill that we passed this year that expands the sale of the products?
Yes, ma'am. That was one thing I did bring up, that over the last 9 legislative sessions, the Senate Tourism Committee has handled just about all the alcohol bills. And the chair of the committee out there in the industry has become known as the alcohol lady, handling all of it. But no, we're real fortunate that the legislature did pass a bill this past session that the governor signed back in June to legalize what is known as light spirits products. When the ABC was created in '66, it prohibited them from selling any alcoholic beverages of 4% or less of distilled spirits. And there are products that the distillers are making that are very light in alcohol, about the same amount of alcohol as a beer has. But my members couldn't sell it, ABC couldn't sell it, and so some of the manufacturers of these products approached my members last summer of '19, and asked if we could get it legalized. And so we met with DOR and with the legislative leadership on drafting some legislation to legalize this product, and it's quite a few products that are now out in the market. They're distillers and breweries that are making these products now, and they're all kind of different flavors. It's like a hard seltzer, but instead of having a malt base in it, it's a distilled spirits base. The millennials, the flavored malt beverages and the seltzers are just flying off the shelves today because the millennials are so much into flavored products. When I was growing up, you'd go into a package store, it'd be a shelf from about here to that screen of vodka. Now you go in there to about 4 or 5 different aisles of vodka of all different flavors and stuff like that. And even spirits are getting into making a lot of flavors. So they're making their products to appease the consumers of what they want.
Are there any questions or comments? Senator Jordan?
1934 was when beer was legalized. Our association was started in 46. I know the state of y'all passed legislation probably 4 or 5 years ago to legalize homebrew. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are there any more questions or comments from Mr. Brown?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Senator Jordan, are you purporting that homebrew was made out of China berries? So the answer is yes.
Albert. For those of you who want to know where to find some of the new spirits, the light spirits that he was just mentioning, you can see me after the meeting is over, and I will tell you where some of the distribution centers are.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Appreciate it.
Our next presenter is Jennifer Head, who is going to speak with us, and also Andre Hollis. And we're going to hear about the parks, the Mississippi Wildlife Fisheries, and the parks. We did touch on this yesterday. I think one of our presenters brought it up, and there was a lot of interest at dinner last night talking about our parks and how we can improve them. So let's look forward to what these folks have to tell us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all today. Just wanted to introduce again our staff. I'm Jennifer Head. I've been with the department a little over 8 years. Started in accounting, went to State Parks Director, and now I'm the Budget Administrator and Legislative Liaison. And with me is Andre Hollis. He's been in the park system over 20 years. He's our Park Operations Director now, and Randy Taylor, you've probably seen him walking around the halls here. He's our legislative liaison with the agency. So just some highlights I want to tell you about our system and what we offer. So this is a chart of the state and where our parks are located. I know it may be a little hard to see, but we have 25 parks in our system. Over 23,000 acres that are under our purview. 3,500 of those that we manage. That's from lawn maintenance to upkeep, playgrounds. Over 600 structures, including 91 of those which are CCC structures, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. Over 85 miles of roads, parking areas, bridges that we maintain. Power lines, transformers, the rental opportunities from cabins to motel rooms, villas, townhouses, over 1,800 campsites, RV sites around the state. And all of these facilities require clean drinking water and adequate sewer systems. So over the years, we've been recognized in several different publications. These are some of our accolades that we've received. You've probably seen in Mississippi Magazine some of these highlights: Best of Hiking, Best of Campgrounds, Best of Parks. And then fishing, we have some of the best reservoirs for fishing. We have lots of out-of-state people that come in to visit our lakes and our reservoirs along 55. The state record for bass is actually in Natchez State Park. Crappie record, Coster State Park holds that. And then we are ranked in as top 5 in the nation for best crappie fishing. So outdoor recreation. I listened to Dr. Jones yesterday touch on this a little bit, but I want to talk specifically about parks, even though we are a wildlife agency and we offer all of the things that he discussed. But I want to talk about parks and what they mean to our agency and to the state. Communities across Mississippi are really partial to the parks in their areas. They're an economic boost for those areas. The parks and infrastructure are one of the things that attracts people to move to those areas to offer things for their families and their children. It's one of the 5 most important community amenities considering when selecting a home. 58% of Mississippians participate in outdoor recreation, and 54% of campers will travel within 100 miles to reach a campground. So those people are spending within those local communities and helping those local communities. Benefits of state parks. You can see parks is in the middle of the things that are important to all of us: economy, society, health. People are looking for an affordable option and vacation opportunities for their families. The park system was created to offer just that back in the 1930s. I'm not sure if that directly relates to Ricky's point of prohibition, but we do offer those affordable opportunities for those families that don't have a chance to go off and those bigger areas and offerings. So the Civilian Conservation Corps. The park system was developed by President Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s. He passed the Emergency Conservation Work Act. It was an effort to get soldiers from the war back to working in the communities and their homes. We have 9 CCC parks, over 91 structures, and I'm not sure if you've ever been to any of our parks, but the structures are really unique and they have a set standard for that time period. We have also worked with Department of Archives and History in trying to maintain those structures in that time period. We have a project at Legion State Park that's just been completed where they've restored one of the cabins for that area, for that era. This is just an overview of our funding, but it's a great snapshot that tells our story. In the last 20 years, our funding has been reduced almost 60%, and we've lost over right at 70% of our positions. So every time we have had a budget cut, it directly impacts the staffing, the services, and the amenities. You may recall going to a park with your children or grandchildren and having paddle boats or renting, going to a swimming pool even, and we've had to not offer those as we've had these budget cuts. And the other important thing on our list is deteriorating facilities. The last large infusion of bond money was 25 years ago. So it's our goal to maintain some of these facilities that we have, to preserve those things rather than build new ones. But we also have a struggling infrastructure. Remember the point I made on the sewer system, the adequate sewer system, the adequate water supply. Those systems, even though you can't see them, they need a lot of maintenance, and they're failing. 70% of our parks budget is derived from user fees and non-state funds. 30% of our budget is general fund support. Do you have a question, Senator?
I think when you finish, you'll have some questions for you.
Thank you. Okay, this is another story of ours, a snapshot, and what surrounding states are doing. And you can see Mississippi on the highlighted line. We lack the opportunity for dedicated funding and capital investment dedicated funding. So let's elaborate on dedicated funding a little bit. Other states have adopted different mechanisms. The most recent is Georgia. It's the third bullet there. They put on a ballot in 18. They passed a legislation to set aside 80% of sales tax in sporting goods for conservation efforts, and this included state parks. So that was significant. But other states have similar funding sources. Arkansas, 1/8 cent sales tax from an amendment on tax and tax on tourism-related businesses. And one thing I'm really proud of is this year the legislature approved for state parks to have their vanity tag. So that's exciting, and we hope to kick that off November 1st, so with our pre-sale of the 300 license plates. So watch for that. Partnerships, they're really important in state parks. We do have several around the state. We have Mississippi Children's Museum. They're on one of our properties here in the metro area. We are undergoing a project with Blue Cross Blue Shield for playground development at LaFleur's Bluff State Park. Toyota, Mississippi, they adopted a park in the north part of the state, Tom Bigby State Park. Senator McMahon was there for the kickoff for that. They dedicated $250,000 over a 5-year period, and we did a lot of improvements at that park. AmeriCorps, they have been instrumental more recently with several of our parks for cleanup, for trails, cabins, any kind of upkeep and maintenance that we've needed through those areas. Nucor Steel, they're a local company. They've helped us at Roosevelt State Park and also at LaFleur's Bluff State Park from providing us with fire pits and grills. City of Goshen, this is one of our state parks that we have an agreement with the city that they operate and manage. So that was that's been a very positive relationship. Scenic Rivers, also a quasi-governmental opportunity. City of Grenada, Mallard Point, those are all helping with our golf courses. And then our local garden clubs and friends groups, they meet monthly and are really instrumental in helping bring the communities out and promoting the park within the communities and fundraising and earmarking different things to improve. Economic impact, Craig Ray mentioned some of these yesterday. Our visitation in FY19 was 1.24 million. This was a 4% increase over FY18. And then one of the things that we want to do is work with MDA and optimize our marketing and advertising resources. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the things that both of us would like as chair, I'm chair in the House, she's chair in the Senate, is a copy of this. Yes, and I can tell you that there is a group of House members, and I'm sure there are Senate members as well, but we are actually looking to see what we can do to help our state parks. You know, tourism has been affected, but I believe, and I think everybody else does, our state parks have always been something of pride. And I know that this is my 4th term, and I've never, ever been in a meeting to discuss finances for state parks, ever. And so I'm not even sure how that is done through the budget. I'm guessing wildlife, but 60% cut is just ridiculous. Okay, so this is a good thing we're getting this now. I looked at all states and how they funded state parks, and a lot of them were taxes, which this legislature, I don't believe, likes. But one of them that I noticed that just kind of hit a light bulb for me was lottery money, to make sure that some of that lottery money goes to state parks. And I'm sure with as much, you have 25 state parks, you probably don't even have a number figure of what all you need.
In deferred maintenance alone, we have about $147 million worth of needs.
So,
$147 million.
and we're not going to get that right off the bat, but we've got to start somewhere.
That's right.
And so I plugged in the lottery for you there. I thought that was a good way. I think
Absolutely.
we've all been a little bit surprised at the money coming in. But, you know, I have Lincoln County State Park, and right near me is Percy Quinn, which has just always been a wonderful thing for families to do, and you're out in the clean air. We saw yesterday, I don't know if you were here yesterday, just watching of wildlife brought in $947 million, not shooting, watching. And, you know, so these things were shocking to me, and I wish I had that list. I took it with me, but fishing was unreal of the money it brought in. So the safest thing to do is pull your RV, rent a cabin, go to the state park. But what's happening is we've let them go down so badly that people aren't coming. Another reason is they don't go because we don't advertise them. I've always wondered why we didn't do more camps for, you know, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, something. We're missing our niche. And, you know, with a 60% budget cut, I want you to know I'm not blaming you. Okay? But,
Thank you.
so anyway, I just want you to know we are looking at it. I hope something gets done this year. And, you know, it's a shame we have let it get in the shape it has been in.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
I have a question from Senator Boyd.
Do we have any type of strategic plan or that has been done of our state parks that shows what are the things that are most marketable, what is the wildlife that is most marketable to watch, anything that has looked at it comprehensively statewide to see what could be the parks that we start attracting more visitors in and very focused on that? Do we have any type of strategic plan on that?
We do.
Okay.
And let me answer it in a couple of different ways. We did contract with a company several years ago, and they produced a document that itemizes every park with the challenges, with the whole SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Some of those things we have implemented, some of those things that we have not, and there are certain limitations, you know, based on our political relationships. So, but yes, we do have that. We also have one with the Bureau of Buildings that we do on an annual basis. And if you look at that document, you'll see that for years, Parks is always on that document. We don't get enough bond funding to do all of the things that we should do and need to be done, but we have been successful the last couple of years in securing bond money, $4 million and less. So we do have those things available.
Is that the strategic analysis, is that proprietary? Could you share that with the legislature? Because I think that would help us substantially being able to do that, to look at stuff.
I will verify that.
Okay,
I'll verify that and let you know.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Ms. Jennifer, was, do you know what other states like Alabama may actually spend on marketing their state parks? Because it seems like I'm from the central eastern part of the state, and every time I cut on my TV, Alabama state parks are advertising in Mississippi, you know, come see our wonderful parks. Do you know the difference in maybe their budget versus what we spend, or how many dollars we actually spend on marketing parks?
I do not know that, but I will try to find that out for you.
And to the chair ladies, I know both of y'all have visited my beloved state park over in Morton, Roosevelt State Park. And one of the things that came out of my mind from a lady's perspective is, Chairman Curry said, it's the bathrooms. Ladies want to have a clean bathroom. If we don't have bathrooms for them to go to, they're not going to come back. And then Chairman, Ms. Lydia Chastanow, she visited Morton, Roosevelt, and several others with the Public Property Committee as well in tourism last year. And then one of the things we looked at, I think, was upgrading simple things like bedding. You know, if you don't have a good bed to sleep on, if your room's not, maybe could have a little updated paint, people would come back. But One thing that I just wanted to bring attention to the committee as a whole is, from rural areas like where I'm from, the people that, when they come to our area, they know us for chicken and they know us for Roosevelt State Park. And the state park brings in so many people to our area that would never come. And it's an economic driver for our small towns. And when their parks aren't opened, or when they're losing services of that sort, you know, we don't have that tax base that's coming that we were getting off of sales tax that leads to other things that we can do with our communities. And I know it's just not our community, it's your community and everyone else's community that has these. But, you know, these are a jewel that we have, and I think I'm just excited to see that the legislative process is looking at parks and doing more that we can do to help improve them as a whole.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? Oh, excuse me, I saw him first, then you, okay. Senator Jackson, and then Senator Horn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm from the Panola County area, and up there we have a shooting range park.
Yes, sir.
It's a fairly new facility, very nice. I just wonder how that came about. It was a partnership between, I guess, the state and Winchester or somebody.
Yes.
How did it come about, and do we have any other parks like that in the state?
We have 3 shooting facilities throughout the state. MacGyver is our newest one, outside of Senatobia. And it's a fabulous, fabulous range. If you haven't visited, it's very beautiful. It was a partnership between the agency, the foundation, our foundation, and Winchester. And they were able to help with the funding and opening of that. We have a range, McHenry shooting range outside of Wiggins, Mississippi. And then we have Turcotte shooting range in Brandon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Mr. Hollis. You're the director of our park system?
Direct park operation.
Okay, and would you mind using the microphone? A few decades ago, Percy Quinn, Buccaneer, they vied for who was the number 1, number 2 park in the state annually. Can you tell us where we are? What's the number 1 park destination, number 2, number 3?
Yes, sir. Right up, Carolyn Percy Quinn is the number 2 still, and Buccaneer is our number 1 park. And then we got Paul B. Johnson down in Hattiesburg. Those are the top 3 parks right now in the state. They're the bigger facilities that we got. We got more amenities at those state parks, and they got more draws.
And do we have parks that, you know, no amount of money is going to attract folks to them, or do you have the opinion that all the parks are viable and need to be kept in state service, or are there some that we need to divest of?
Well, we do have some smaller parks that that don't have as many amenities and everything. But right now, the plan for us is to keep all state parks. Upgrading all state parks to try to keep all 25 of them, because every state park at every location is a jewel. It might not be bringing in a whole lot of money, but that area right there is the life of that area. So our plan right now is to try to keep all 25 of those parks and not to try to cut any of them. But we do need upgrades for all of them.
And ballpark, what's the annual operating cost of the park system?
That'll be a Jennifer call on that one. She's our budget person on the operation part of it.
We've had, with our budget cuts over the years and us trying to work within those levels, we spend about $13 million a year now.
And can you tell us what the economic impact of that $13 million expenditure is?
For every dollar spent, there's about a $4 economic impact to the area. So that's how.
About 52 million, somewhere around there. What do you characterize as the reason that for the last quarter century we've disinvested in our state parks?
Sometimes we just take it. Sometimes we just take our parks for granted, and a lot of we know we got it there, but a lot of times we just don't take time out to go and visit. You know, we talked to some people before, and that's what they said. Talked to some legislators, and they said, I love the state park, but I just forgot about it, and they just hadn't had time to come. Because, you know, our life's so busy right now, and you just don't take the opportunity to go out and visit. And then when you do go out 20 years later, you're expecting it to be just like it was when you went 20 years ago. And the facility is just not holding up that way.
And you mentioned some partnerships that were in place. Is there any plan to increase private sector or corporate or foundation partnerships with the state?
Yes, sir. AmeriCorps has been really great for us because we've been you know, submitting information, trying to get them to come out and help us. They actually plan on coming next month to 3 different parks. They'll be going to Paul B. Johnson, Costa State Park, and also Legion State Park to help us out. And they usually bring anywhere from 10 to 12 people with them, and they'll come and stay, you know, anywhere from 2 to 3 months and help us out. And that really helps us with you saw the budget cuts that we already got, and plus you saw the personnel that we lost. So by having them come into partnership with us, that's been a big help to the parks.
Okay. One final question. Have you made efforts in the past to go after federal support for the parks?
Yes, sir, we have.
We do have federal support, but it's minimal. There are not a lot of grant opportunities out there for parks. We are the agency in the state that manages the Land and Water Conservation Fund and the Recreational Trails Program. Both of those programs are for communities and cities, and we do a lot for local parks. We have been able to utilize some of that money for our facilities, but it's a 50-50 match or an 80-20 match, and the match part is always the challenge.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe Senator McMahon had a question next, then Representative Gibbs, then I'll get to the others, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Director Head, good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you here. I wanted to take an opportunity to make a comment on you personally. I've had several dealings with you, and I always appreciate your professionalism, that you return phone calls in a timely manner. Thank you for that. Thank you for always providing any information that I call and ask you for. I try to be fair. Sometimes in this room I'm hard on people, but they deserved it and they've earned it. But you've earned this as well, some positive comments. So, because we all work for the people, and it's important we have a responsive government, and you're a fantastic public servant, bureaucrat. Thank you. So I actually visit the state parks regularly. I have several state parks within my own district, but I visit J.P. Coleman, for example, almost every weekend at Tennessee River. And I really believe, I've got a couple of questions for you. So we have 25 state parks. When was the last park purchased or created? Do you know?
I don't know offhand either. I can get you that
No,
information.
I just wondered. These are not loaded questions. I was just curious for the record. I really believe that the path forward is through private-public partnerships. This is something we really need to consider. For example, Trace State Park over in Pontotoc County. I believe they have the only motocross track in the state at a state park. Well, you know, Honda or Kawasaki or somebody may be willing to partner with you guys on that. Same thing at some of the other parks. I know I have some municipalities particularly that have been interested in partnering and managing some of the recreational areas of some of the state parks, and that has not been a conversation that state parks wanted to have in the past. But I think if we have entities, and whether they be completely private entities, like you used the Toyota example where they gave $250,000 to the Tishomingo State Park, to the Tom Bigby State Park. You know, those are the big opportunities. And I know there was a hotel that wanted to come to Tishomingo, to Tom Bigby State Park in Tupelo. And, you know, that conversation didn't go any further because you guys were not open to it at the time. But I actually go through, anytime I'm driving and I see a state park, I ride through just to look at it. And I'm distraught over what I see at Tishomingo State Park in Tishomingo County, Mississippi, which was a CCC park. That levee has been breached now for, what, 20 years? Would you agree? Have you been there lately? Director Hollis, would you take the microphone? So you've been to Tishomingo State Park in Tishomingo County and seen the condition of the lake and the piers?
Yes, sir, I have, and we actually got a project that we're working on trying to repair that at this time.
I understand there's a sand vein or something in the levee, and that keeps the lake continues to drain. Every time it attempts to fill up, it'll drain.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So in that opportunity, you know, maybe we need to convert that lake bed to something else and do something else with it. If we can't repair it, but that park stays full in spite of the lake. That park is full. If you go there just about every weekend, you're unable to get a campground. But I just think that a plan should be developed that we need to take the bottom 10 parks, and we really need to look at opportunities for public-private partnerships and use those as pilots, because it's not the parks that are doing very well that need help or that are of great concern. It's the parks that are at the bottom tier parks that are not creating and generating any revenue to be self-sustaining. We really need a focus to help every park generate a plan to become completely self-sustaining, in my opinion, is what I think. Do you have an opinion on it?
Yes, sir, I agree with you. I definitely think that we all need to get together and, you know, get a committee together to sit down there and come up with some suggestions, because we open, that's why we're here today. We open the suggestions, and we asking for people's, you know, comments. So we definitely would love to sit down with you guys to do that.
Thank you, Director. And Director Head, I know that we have attempted several times to tour some of the parks together in South Mississippi, and I know the COVID event interrupted that, but I do look forward to you and me and one of your staff members touring some of the parks again, some of the southern parts that I've never visited. But thank you again.
Sounds good.
For your help.
Thank you.
Senator Jordan, I believe you were the next.
25 parks that we have. But they have made a couple of movies.
It is considered one of our state parks, but we have an agreement with the Board of Supervisors for LaFleur County, so they operate and manage that. And it was operated as a day use area, just a day use area.
So you haven't put any resources there so they can operate.
No, sir, we have not. About 13 million. Yes, sir. We are looking at every avenue that we're open to any avenue. The dedicated funding stream is what's needed.
All I'm saying, we need some help, and I'll be doing more work in this issue.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Senator McMahon for a follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chairwoman. Director Head, I wanted the committee to be aware of this as well. I know, like, there is a TV production company, a movie producer that's going to be making a movie in Tishomingo County at the park, and about the great explorer Meriwether Lewis that explored the Mississippi Basin. But you know, when that company approached state parks, as you're aware, you know, it took several months, a lot longer than it should have taken to create that partnership. And I want to be sure, the reason I'm stating that is it's not enough just to have a plan. We need to be able to execute these plans, and that when we have companies, whether they're in-state or out-of-state, that want to partner and have opportunities at these parks, we need to seize those opportunities. But anyway, I know you're aware of that movie is going to be created there in Tishomingo, and it's going to be something really positive, something else positive for the state of Mississippi. But I just wanted the committee to be aware that we need to, I'm encouraging the agency to be a little faster in their responses with these opportunities. Thank you.
I hope that was an exception and not.
Thank you.
Do we have any further? Yes, sir, Senator Jackson.
Just one last question, Madam Chair. In regards to the pandemic and that people can't travel like they usually do in terms of vacationing, what has been the experience of people coming to parks in the state as an alternative to going other places?
I'll defer to Andre.
The camping has been skyrocketing because most people staying close to home, and you know, with their own camper, they don't have to worry about the sanitizing because they inside their own unit. So camping has really been really great for us. Now we have made some exceptions in the cabin area because you know we haven't been able to rent all of them at one time because of the sanitation part of it. So the cabins hadn't been booked as much, but as far as the campground, it's been really busy.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
since we got all this money from the federal government in regards to the pandemic, we might be able to use some of that, clean up some of those cabins.
Good idea. Are there other questions or comments? This has been a wonderful discussion. I'm so delighted for the participation of the committee members on this. I recently toured Hugh White State Park because that's in my district. It was a place as a child that was sort of a jewel as far as state parks. And of course, they had a terrible storm back over Easter. And I said that the problem with Hugh White is it's been ravaged by Father Time and Mother Nature. So I'm hoping that also the 60% budget cut just astounds me. I had no idea that it was that bad. There's a lot we can work on, and as a committee, I encourage you all, House and Senate members, to brainstorm and figure out how we can improve this situation because it is a valuable asset for our state and for our tourism industry. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of things to follow up on about the CARES Act. We have put in a request for some CARES Act funding to help our parks, from automated hand washing stations to filtration to HVAC. There's a laundry list of things that we could utilize CARES Act money for. So hopefully the powers that be will help us. Senator McMahon, Lake Lincoln was the last park back in the 90s. So
That's interesting that you would say that. Look, see, it's interesting you would stumble into this conversation. So we have 25 parks, and the budget's been cut over 60% over a number of years, and yet we're still acquiring state parks. That doesn't make any sense in my mind.
some of them are from the county, form a effort within the counties and the cities for us to maintain. Otherwise, they would be closed. So I don't know the particulars about Lake Lincoln, but I can definitely find out.
Where is
But it's
Lake?
usually it's in Lincoln County.
It's in which county?
Per district.
Okay. Well, I think that park should be named Becky Curry Park. I'd entertain a second.
And then about the shooting ranges, we did have some federal dollars that went into that. There is opportunity for federal grants for that, for shooting ranges.
The Senatobia range, that falls into what I'm talking about, that each park should be specialized in what it does and try to have a partner. Like you said, Winchester is a partner there. And I think if these partnerships are available and created and available, I think you would be surprised how many companies would jump on those opportunities, would seize that opportunity to be a partner and have a park, that's named with them. But like, I'll give you a good example. At Saltillo, Mississippi, I know there's a camping, RVing is huge, and it's my understanding, you know, there's a shortage of RV campsites across the United States, and at this particular park, there is an intersection of 2 4 lanes, and it's a state park, and KOA, a company like KOA, would love to be a partner there and to come in and do the upgrades to the park, and then let the municipality run all the amenities and facilities. But anyway, these are the opportunities that we need to really be looking at, and but the path forward is a private partnership. That is the path forward, because what's taking place here in this state, we're a state of 3 million people. And when you try to compare us to what's going on in Alabama, they're a state of 7 million people. The more people you have, the broader the tax base. So for us in this park system, the immediate path forward has got to be through a private partnership. So I think that's really the only solution forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question, and because I'm not a CARES money expert, so I'm hoping somebody in this room may be. I'm wondering if we're coming back in for CARES money. Can you use CARES money to rebuild these things that we're talking about now? If somebody's shaking their head yes, I'm guessing they know. Does anybody know? I mean, we got a one-time shot here.
How much money does the park system need to, in your opinion, to bring every park up to code to meet all the maintenance requirements? How much money does that require?
Well, the last time we had a study done, it was the 147 million.
So if we got 50 million out of this, that would be a start, and then we could go back to some other.
So I'll tell you, we've been working with the Bureau of Buildings for the past several years on a master plan for the 5 premier parks, the larger parks with offer more amenities, and that's a $45 million estimate. So, and that would include campgrounds, include the lodge, include
Bathrooms.
bathhouses, all of that.
Well, I mean, that's just, $147 million. It's, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's not going to happen. But, so we're going to have to be innovative and come up with another way to accomplish this. Because the state parks are important to me and the people I represent. I do think they're invaluable asset within regional assets and a state asset. But we can develop a plan together, and we've got to do that. That is the way forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Madam Chair. Albert Butler, I serve on the State Property Committee. And first, I would like to commend you all for the job that you do. And I would like to encourage more of us to visit state parks. But one of the plans that the Bureau of Buildings have in place now, that hadn't been in place for some time, I think will serve to expedite matters, to help to improve and to prioritize things in a more efficient way. So it's a plan that's been outlined, and we're planning now to follow the plan that the Bureau of Building has presented. As it stands now, you're doing a very, very efficient job in taking care of the things. More of us just need to know about where those demands should be put.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's one thing I was going to mention, what Senator Butler was saying, that I think the Tourism Committee, the Wildlife Committee, and the Public Property Committee need to all get on the same page, because I've met with all three at 3 different times looking at parks, so that we all know what's going on. Another thing is, I wish we could get more money from MDA to help promote our state parks inside the state, because sometimes out of sight, out of mind, when we forget about our own things. We've heard that mentioned. And there's so much mention about privatizing our parks and different things, but we have to remember when state parks were built to begin with, it was to help improve the quality of life. They were never really built on a business model where so many of us want to look at, and I understand about partnerships, and those are great. But when you start comparing one of our state parks versus a park that's owned by a private entity, the price doubles for families. And you want to have it where, you know, a family can go and afford to go to the parks to visit those things. And sometimes I'll use my home area because what I see from experience is that our state park stays packed a lot of times because it's so much more affordable to the private-owned park a few miles down the road because it's more affordable. We just need to invest more resources into it. And public-private partnerships are great, but I don't think we need to privatize them, though.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you both for being here today. As you both know, I have two parks in my district, the Charlie Capps and also the Great River Road Park. It's interesting to hear and talk about partnerships because I alluded to the last couple of meetings that we've had about the partnership that Ducks Unlimited at some point had with Charlie Capps. So I'm very open to those opportunities like my colleague, Senator McMahon alluded to, but I think we have to be very careful when we enter into those partnerships. As it relates to my own specific situation with the Great River Road Park, it is, Senator, probably one of the parks in the state that's, as some would say, underperforming or is not generating the income that is necessary for it to function as it did years ago. But I'm excited about the fact that for the past couple of years, your office has done a better job of being transparent, trying to talk it up internally. When I first got here, you know, there was very little conversation about parks and wildlife and fisheries. I can tell, and I'm not sure if you all can tell, but the last couple of years, you know, I feel something brewing. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the work that you all are doing. A couple weeks ago, we were here talking about potentially having a subcommittee in wildlife and fisheries. I'm excited to say, and I don't think this is any secret, the House members on that subcommittee are slated to visit every single park in this state over the next couple of months, and I'm a part of that. And I think the evaluation period that we're going through is really helping to put more attention on it, and so a lot of the credit goes to you all. And so long story short, I know it seems quite challenging to hear some of these things, and it's quite weighty, particularly the money, especially when my Senate colleague told you that $147 million is not possible. But there are some ways that we can phase it in so that we can, 3 or 4 years down the road, be able to say that we've made an impact throughout the entire park system. So I'm inspired by the work that you all are doing, and please keep it up.
Thank you.
Senator Horn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you tell me if WFP has the legal authority to enter into a public-private partnership without having to first come back to the legislature?
I didn't hear the first part of your question, I'm sorry.
Can you enter into a public-private partnership without having to get authority from the legislature on each and every deal?
Yes, sir. We do have the authority in our appropriation bill to enter into a public-private partnership. And those are really instrumental. I mean, like Senator McMahon said, they have helped us at several of the parks. So we are open to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
One point of clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie Capps is a fishing lake, so it gets a lot of activity too, so not a park.
Well, this has been an excellent discussion. I think we've got a lot of food for thought. If I encouraged any of the committee members in the Senate side to do anything, I'd say if you have a state park in your district, go see it. Go see it, and it will help us as we move forward. And thanks to the House members that are going to visit all these parks. If we go and see, perhaps we'll be able to then make better decisions about how to overcome these deficiencies, because this is a very valuable resource, and it's being underserved, and it's going to be up to us to help make the decisions that will provide the necessary funding and the direction that's needed to help make this a resource that we can be proud of again. Thank you so much for coming today, Mr.
Thank
Hollis
you,
and
appreciate
Ms.
your input.
All right, our next speaker is Rochelle Hicks. She's the Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association, and she has brought with her Chip Reno, who is a lobbyist for the Tourism Association. Hicks?
Yes, thank you so much for having us here today. We appreciate the invitation, Madam Chairwoman. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Mississippi Tourism Association. We are the private association. We partner a lot with Visit Mississippi. So throughout my slides, you'll see a little bit about both Visit Mississippi and MTA. But also, I wanted to go ahead and speak to something Jennifer and I were speaking before we started today. And our association is a part of the Southeast Tourism Society, and they've just recently passed a national Great American Outdoors Act in July of this year, and that will address the deferred maintenance backlog and fully fund the Land and Conservation Fund for our national parks in the state, which we currently have 8. So if y'all want some more information on that, I can be happy to send that to anybody. You can just let Senator Chasnow know, and we will get that to you. But for instance, the Vicksburg National Military Park, they have $30 million in total need. So that just shows you, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's billions of dollars over a certain amount of years that they will start doing the deferred maintenance backlog. So I know a lot of you are familiar with Mississippi Tourism Association, but for those that are not, we are the statewide arm. We consider ourselves the voice for the tourism industry in Mississippi. We work very closely with the Gaming Association, with the Restaurant Association, the Hotel and Lodging Association. So we consider ourselves the voice for tourism in Mississippi. We have been around for over 35 years, and we're excited to represent Mississippi's tourism industry and poised to make even greater progress in the years ahead. So why does tourism matter? I know that y'all have heard these statistics over the past day and a half, but you know, we always like to just give these numbers out to anyone who's willing to listen to us. But we had 24.7 million people visit our state last year, which generates $675 million for the state's general fund. We had $6.7 billion spent by visitors total for the year of 2019, which relates to over 127,000 jobs in our industry. So as you can see, that's why we are the 4th largest industry in the state of Mississippi. So like I said, we have a great partnership with Visit Mississippi. We always work with you all on matters in regards to tourism. We also work with the state legislative body to ensure awareness of issues that affect the tourism industry. We help secure needed funding for Visit Mississippi to be able to promote Mississippi and bring visitors to the state. Prior to our funding model that we just recently got passed, we would come back to you all every year and ask for an appropriation for Visit Mississippi. So our visitor spending helps state and local governments close gaps, but also these funds are generated through lodging, food, and beverage taxes. So jobs related to tourism cannot be outsourced. That's something that we like to hit home and say that our role is to not only protect those jobs, but also grow the tourism-related job sector. And we know that right now we have a lot of people in our industry that are laid off or furloughed, and we're hoping that as tourism slowly starts to come back, that we will be able to reinstate a lot of these tourism jobs around our state because it is so important. Like I said, we support over 122,000 private sector jobs in Mississippi, which is 11% of all the private sector jobs in the state of Mississippi. Job creation in tourism has grown 1.6% in the last 8 years. Obviously, we know that will be down this year, but hopefully we can get that back to a growing stage. With our new funding model, we anticipate those jobs to grow. So what funding model, you ask, for those of you who may not know, and I'll turn it over to Chip and let him tell you a little bit about it.
Thank you, Rochelle, and thank you, committee. 2 years ago, and I think most of you were in the legislature then, but if you weren't, I'll recount the history. 2 years ago, we were here as an association asking you guys for dedicated funding for advertising for tourism in our state. And that dedicated funding does not go to the association. We were just lobbying on behalf of the agency that was wanting the funding. What we did, the model is permanent. There's not a repealer on it. It created, and it started July 1 of last year after it was passed, July 1 of 19. Year one, every single month, there was a deferment of 1% of the state sales tax on restaurants throughout the state, and 1% of the state sales tax on hotel rooms throughout the state. That includes the casino hotels as well. That, for 12 months, took place. Starting in July 1 of this year, it went to 2%. This last month, I can tell you that the Department of Revenue diverted $628,000 just last month for tourism advertising. It goes into a fund at MDA at Visit Mississippi, and they're enabled to spend it. They could not spend any of the money until earlier this year, and that was right before COVID, actually, with the statute. Wanted that money to accumulate, obviously, before they started spending. So they had a pool of money to spend, but then COVID hit, so they're just now beginning to spend some of the money. But year three, which will be July 1 next year, 2021, 3% of those state sales taxes for restaurants and hotels will be diverted just for tourism advertising. So if you think about we're $628,000 last month, that's going to be $7 million plus for the 12-month period. Next year it'll be 3%, so it should be $900 plus thousand a month that is diverted. So it'd be close to between $11 and $12 million from next year thereafter for tourism advertising. That was very important. We appreciate your help helping us do that. You guys were fabulous. We had great leadership from our chairs and other members of the committee and former tourism directors like Senator Horn, who knows exactly what that means to the state and advertising. As you well know, some of you have mentioned about Alabama's parks and the golf courses that we see advertising for those. They have a completely different advertising source. They're actually managed, I think, if I'm not mistaken, by their Teachers Retirement Fund, and that they then advertise those because it helps. It's an asset of that fund, actually. So completely different situation what we have to deal with here. We don't have that luxury, if you will. So we were only spending about 1.6 to 1.8 million a year in advertising prior to this dedicated funding, and this will put us on even footing with the Arkansas and Louisianas and Tennessees and Alabamas that we deal with and compete against for advertising our state. So that's our dedicated funding model, and we're very proud of it, and quite honestly, other states around the country have been looking at it and saying, hey, look what Mississippi just did, and why can't we do something similar here? And we hope they don't do that soon so we can get our visitors here rather than there. But it's because of you and y'all's dedication to tourism in the state and believing in the product and our people that we got that done, and we appreciate it very much.
Yep. Yes, we do want to say a big thank you to all of you, because this is something that's been one of the biggest wins for tourism in our state in a long time, probably since gaming was passed years ago. So we really appreciate this, and we know that this is going to really move our state forward. We also worked, prior to getting the funding, we worked to help secure some funding for Mississippi's bicentennial, and that was something that we worked with the Department of Archives and History on doing that, and that was a hugely successful campaign. You can see it was called Mississippi Runs Deep. The Godwin Group was the agency that helped us with that campaign, and we only, by the time the money came through, we only had about 6 months to advertise. So we had $2.5 million to advertise in 6 months, which was a huge thing for the state when we only normally spend a 1.8 annually. So that was a great campaign. You can see here what that generated. So one of the things, and Craig Ray may have spoken to y'all a little bit about this yesterday, but our numbers prove that we're the hospitality state. More travelers stop in our welcome centers than any other states. You can see here the statistics of the welcome centers and how many visitors they have. We have 13 official welcome centers that Visit Mississippi does run and operate, and those are the ones that are listed there. So welcome centers are something that visitors look for. You know, we also have a lot of our local communities who have welcome centers. I know that Columbus has a welcome center, Hattiesburg, so that's also a great thing for a city to do as well, if they are not close to a state-operated welcome center. So everyone plays a role in tourism. You know, I like to say when you think about all of the different businesses that play into our industry, and you think about laundry facilities and all the laundry for hotels and casinos and that type of thing, and gas stations. I mean, there's so much that plays a part in tourism in our state. While manufacturing is wonderful and we want more of it, think of tourism as a product that we as a community manufacture, because that is something that's so important for us to realize how important this industry is to our state, and I think that y'all have done that with coming through with the funding, so we want to thank you again for that. This is a COVID-19 travel study with Longwoods International. Again, Craig may have gone over a little bit of this yesterday, but we've looked to our national partners, Longwoods, Miles Partnership, U.S. Travel, to help gauge current travel trends, and according to Longwoods and Miles Partnership, 67% of travelers will change their travel plans due to coronavirus. 50% shorten length of travel, 34% cancel plans altogether, 33% changed fly to destinations to ones that they can drive to instead. And that's what's so good for Mississippi, because we are a drive market. We are, we've always been, you know, mostly a drive market, so this has been, you know, not that COVID is good for anyone, but on the tourism side, that is one plus that we've had, is that we are a great drive market. Those who shorten the length of travel, Mississippi is a perfect destination for a quick weekend or weekday getaway. They changed destinations to ones they could drive to instead, and we have never been dependent solely on air travel for our visitors, but those who are choosing not to fly are the people we need to attract to come to Mississippi. They changed their trip from an international to a domestic destination, another group of people for travel to target in Mississippi. So what do we have to offer to a visitor? And these are just a few highlights, but obviously our music, you know, when international travel does come back on board, we know that now that we have the funding to be able to target international travelers, that will be a great draw for us, and music is always one of those things. Sorry. Okay, Mississippi trail markers. You probably are aware that the state has lots of great trail markers around, and the Blues Trail is obviously the largest one to date, I think with over 200 markers, if I'm not mistaken. So, but these are always something that travelers look for. Obviously, our food. We have amazing food in our state. You know, I know a lot of our other competing states do advertise their food, but we are just as have just as many great restaurants in our state. So, you know, you have foodies that will travel for amazing food and experiences all over Mississippi. And outdoors, going back to what y'all were talking about earlier, the outdoors is a huge market for us, especially right now. Hunting, fishing, cycling, hiking and kayaking. I know if you ever drive the Natchez Trace, you're always behind a bicyclist, and sometimes it gets annoying, but when you think about that those cyclists are coming to visit our state and cycle the Natchez Trace Parkway and lots of other great places around our state. Not to forget our museums. We have so many great museums that have recently opened, and you know, they, I know have had a hard time during COVID, but once they get past that, I know that they'll have a great year with tourism coming back, and we have wonderful museums all around the state. Arts and culture, same thing, so many wonderful art museums on the coast and in Jackson. Our history, our casino gaming, and sports. Sports marketing is obviously a great trend, and it's, we have so many communities that have some great sports facilities now as well. So tourism is an industry, and we are its product. So when we showcase Mississippi, we invite people through larger marketing efforts. Visitors come, they spend time and money, then they go home and they talk about how much fun they had in Mississippi and how great it is. So we want you to get involved, help us amplify tourism's voice. if you're ever interested in joining our association, we love to take new members. Also, you can attend one of our conferences. We have our big governor's conference on tourism in the fall. We have our legislative reception, which I think I've seen most of you at in the past, and that's a big event that we have during January. And then we also have a spring conference that we do, and we move all of these conferences around the state so that our smaller communities and our larger communities have the opportunity to host all of our industry. So, and we also would love for you to participate and share the official Mississippi tour guide. So currently, we have a partnership with Visit Mississippi, and so MTA produces the visitor's guide, which is the official state tour guide for the state. It serves as a fundraiser for us. It's the largest printed and digitally distributed piece in the state of Mississippi. We also always try to find like a Mississippi celebrity to be on the cover, and we've been very lucky to have had some great people appear on our cover, and so that's always a fun thing every year, deciding who's going to be on our cover for the next year. But it's our official sales piece for the state. It is available free of charge at all the welcome centers, attractions, hotels, B&Bs, and through Visit Mississippi. And then we get inquiries constantly from all over the United States asking for a copy of our tour guide, and we mail those out to them as well. This is about our governor's conference. This year we'll have it at the IP Resort, Casino Resort and Spa in coastal Mississippi. We were going to have our conference in September, and we've now postponed it to be the first weekend of December, sorry. So we would love for all of you to attend and participate in our conference. So any questions or comments?
Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, first of all. Welcome centers. I've always been kind of fascinated with those as it relates to who manages them, who runs them. I want to ask two questions. We have 13 that we as a state fund, correct?
Yes. They're all of our state welcome centers that are usually located somewhere along the state lines or close to the state lines. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, Visit Mississippi manages those, but they do get some help with like maintenance from MDOT, yes. So, but yes, we currently have 13, and right now they are not open to visitors. Mm-hmm. They're, you know, like if you go up to the door, they have plexiglass, and they will hand a visitor information if they're specifically asking for information on Mississippi. Mm-hmm. But the restrooms are open, but the actual welcome centers are not open yet.
You alluded to several cities, towns, communities that opt to do their own
local,
welcome.
Yes, they have
How many
local.
Local welcome centers would you say that we have?
Wow, I don't know how many. I mean, I know it's more than 10 because Jackson has a visitor center, Hattiesburg, Columbus, Ridgeland. So I know Tunica has a large museum/welcome center. Tupelo has a brand new state-of-the-art welcome center. So, I mean, most of our bigger destinations have their own welcome center.
I see. Mm-hmm. This may be somewhat of a loaded question, but is there a way for us to, I know certainly with additional funding, but is there a way to leverage the success or value of what we already have? You know, what can we do to improve upon the welcome centers that we have? I know for my father, when we travel and drive, he loves to stop at different welcome centers.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people that enjoy that. But I don't hear much talk about that as it relates to our welcome centers in this state. So based upon maybe what we've seen in other states, are there some other things that we could be doing that you could, you know, maybe share with us from a funding perspective that might help?
I can't really speak to that. I mean, I guess it would be more of a question for Craig Ray at Visit Mississippi since that's under his area, but, okay, what, Chips, I've got some feedback.
I just had one thought about that. I know that Visit Mississippi is looking at, from the IT perspective, you know, everybody just about has a phone and,
right.
or an iPad, and that has an IP address, but they're working or trying to contract with a company, as I appreciate it, that can capture those IP addresses as they come into those welcome centers throughout the state. And you notice we had a large contingent of people who stopped there. And then with those captured IP addresses, you can push text and email advertising out to those individuals about the state, you know, come back, you know, hope you enjoyed your visit, that type of message. And then, you know, what other opportunities, a festival or or whatnot, that they could advertise to that individual that's coming to a specific or stop at a specific welcome center. So they are looking at things like that to take advantage or leveraging, as you said, that traffic that's coming through that welcome center.
Thank you.
You're right. I mean, it's a great opportunity. We're capturing these visitors, and it's, you know, the more we know about where they're going and how many days they're spending in Mississippi, or if they're just passing through, it's a great opportunity to capture those people that are stopping and we know that are visiting our state.
I think my question may be for Mr. Reno. Thank you, Ms. Hicks, for the
Yes.
great job that you're doing for us. Back to the Tourism Promotion Act, you said roughly 3% of the money from the hotel and restaurant taxes is going to go for advertising, which you said would be
Right.
roughly $11 to $12 million a year to promote the state.
Right.
There's been a lot of talk today about state parks. How much of that money is being allocated to promote our state parks?
That's a good question. As I appreciate the legislation that was passed and is now statute, that advertising expenditure has to be done outside the state, outside of, you know, again, internet type advertising, that just kind of a universal thing, so it's going to be inside and outside. But the commercials and things of that nature, radio commercials, TV commercials, billboards, or that sort of thing, has to be outside the state. You guys, if you wish to address that particular issue with some of those funds, you might want to come back and tweak that language to make sure that some of it can be spent inside the state for things like the state parks.
So in your opinion, because you worked on this bill so hard, what do you think would be a fair percentage to promote our state parks inside and out of the state? 10%?
I would say 10% would be very good, yes.
So maybe we could get you to commit with working with some of our other friends in the room to help us get some legislation passed for our parks this year.
I'm at your beck and call.
Thank you.
Senator Horn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So origin states, is Texas still our #1 origin state?
I don't have those numbers with me. Do any of you guys know Texas is still our #1 origin state? Yeah, I know we have a lot of visitors that pass through, and that's one of the things we've talked about is trying to capture, because we know that we have a lot of people from Texas, Arkansas, and other states going to the beaches in Florida. And so we've talked about ways, now that we have the funding, to be able to capture those people and market to them, because most of them are going to have to stay a night somewhere along the way.
So is the philosophy of the marketing campaign going to be to double down on where we're getting most of our visitors already, or are we going after new markets?
I think they will definitely, again, this is more Craig's department, but from what the conversations I've had with him, they are definitely going to work on the markets that are our strongest markets, but then also they'll have enough funding now to also go after some new markets. And then obviously when international, comes back into play, they will definitely spend, a significant amount on international as well.
Okay. And so, to Chip's points about the parks and the money having to go outside the state, for Tupelo to get someone from Jackson up is that's a pretty good shot in the arm. And it may be someone who would not have gone anywhere in Mississippi. They might have gone to Alabama to the parks there, but got redirected and inspired to go to some places inside the state of
We definitely have an opportunity to have people see what's in their own backyard, is like what we like to say. And speaking to that, we have worked with Visit Mississippi on, what we can do to do a campaign to show, people in our own state, because I know, people say all the time, like, oh, I've never been to such and such a place in our state, and, you kind of wonder, well, I mean, we have because we're in tourism, but it's kind of odd to me sometimes when you hear people say that they haven't been to some of our greatest assets in the state. So that's something, but I think that they would be able to use their current advertising and marketing funding to do in-state promotions.
So they're able to hold on to the general fund advertising that the legislature's been providing previously? which is
Yes,
what,
yes.
about 1.5
About
to-
1.6 or 1.7.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that will give them the opportunity to be able to use those funds to advertise and market in-state.
Yeah, because, you know, one of the things that I'm always impressed by is the fact that the average Mississippian doesn't travel Mississippi.
Exactly.
You know, we don't give, a lot of folks who live in Jackson have never been to Greenville or Cleveland or Goshen. We don't get around the state, and I think that we're leaving money on the table in our own pockets that could go towards the bottom line.
Absolutely, and one of the main things, and kudos to Senator Chasnall, because she and I worked on a letter, I guess it was last year or the year before, and sent it out to all of our associations around the state, because you think about all the associations that take their conferences outside of the state of Mississippi. And, you know, our entities in our state need that money. They need those conferences to be meeting in our state instead of taking them out of state.
Okay, has your association taken a position with regard to the breaking out of tourism from MDA as a standalone agency?
Right now, I think our stance is that we're just basically going to have conversations with everyone involved and see where that takes us.
So you've not formed an official policy in that regard?
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Senator McMahon.
Director Higgs, thank you. My question's for Mr. Reno. I wanted to follow up on Representative Miles' question. He asked, could any of the funds be used for state parks, and you said that it has to be spent outside of the state.
Well, specifically, the funds that were legislated statute 2 years ago.
Right.
Those have to be spent outside the state, except for that IT, digital piece, because digital is kind of a universal concept.
Well, the funds that are being spent on advertising outside the state, what percentage of that are currently being spent to promote state parks?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a question for Craig, but we can follow up and find that out and let you all know.
But I did want to go back to Senator Horn's point just a second ago, which is very important, is the regular appropriation for Visit Mississippi's advertising fund has also remained. So that original $1.6, $1.8 million the legislature has historically given to MDA's Visit Mississippi is there and can be spent inside the state. So that's certainly an avenue. If the legislature doesn't choose to change the legislation next year, that's certainly an avenue to also spend on those state parks and advertising.
That fund, that tourism fund that's being spent outside the state, who's the administrator on that? Who decides who spends those funds?
Well, Visit Mississippi, Craig Ray, who was here yesterday, is the director of Visit Mississippi. His office administers that. That statute also created an advisory committee, which is the Tourism Association's board, which is from all around the state, has members demographically and geographically from the entire state.
I remember that legislation.
Exactly. And they are just advisory, though. They give advice, input, and strategic advice, that sort of thing. They have no executive authority in the statute. So Craig Ray is the one who has that authority.
Okay, thank you. I'll reserve my other questions for him. Thank you.
Representative Miles, did you have a question? Okay.
I always enjoy so much when y'all come every January, I believe, with the big check for the general fund. And I'm just curious, I'm sure that check is not going to look like 2019, but do you have a clue how bad it's going to be? Or
Well, we depend on Tom Van Heining to figure that out for us with the stats.
Okay, so you don't know yet?
He hasn't told us yet. Obviously, you heard from the hoteliers yesterday that we're down. We're not as down as much as some other states are, thankfully, but we are certainly down in terms of our hotel revenue. Restaurant revenue, however, based on what I told you about our 2% that occurred last month from our diversion, restaurant revenue seems to be at or maybe even a little higher than it was pre-COVID, because pre-COVID, when it was 1% being diverted, we were in the low 300s, and now we're, with 2%, now we're at 600 plus. So it's right around the same number. 'Cause a lot of people are, eating out and getting the takeout as
Tired
opposed
of
to.
cooking.
Yeah, that's right. But nevertheless, all those things matter in terms of revenue to the state. So I expect the restaurants to be similar, if not better than last year. Hotels, on the other hand, that's an issue.
And I know it was said earlier, but just having these funds will make us competitive with our other states, where in the past, to think
Struggled.
operating on that small of a budget, and now we will actually be able to be competitive and be competitive in the marketplace with all of our surrounding states.
Yeah, and one of the arguments we had about that several years ago when we looked at that statute and passed that statute was you guys, along with people in the room and others, have invested so much in assets in the state, museums in the Delta, museums on Meridian, aquariums on the Gulf Coast, and you name it. They're incredible assets, but we weren't telling anybody about it. We had a Grammy Museum. We're the only Grammy Museum outside of L.A. in the whole country, but we couldn't tell anybody about it because we had a little over $1 million to spend in advertising, which, is a drop in the bucket when you start talking about advertising costs. You know what those cost.
And so many of these museums, they don't have large marketing
They
budgets,
don't.
so they depend on the state to help them market their, attraction. So
Yeah.
it's much needed to have
It's
these
similar to what
funds.
we're talking about with the state parks. I mean, the museums don't have the marketing budget either. So to get people that, we built it, we want them to come, obviously, we've got to tell them it's built. And that was part of the argument. And we appreciate you guys listening and being a part of it.
I did see our 2 museum advertisement on television recently that was excellent, by the way. So I don't know who did that, but
I think, City of Jackson's CVB, Ricky Thigpen,
Great.
the
Ricky
director.
Thigpen, yes.
They partnered with the History and Civil Rights Museum on those advertisements. And so those are the types of things that our tourism partners and members of Tourism Association do.
any other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when does the money start to be spent from the special diversion?
The statute didn't allow it to be spent until late spring, and then we had COVID, so of course nobody was moving around anywhere in the country. It's like we stopped everything, right? So we didn't immediately advertise during that period, but in fact, at 11 o'clock, the advisory council that I just talked about is meeting with Mr. Ray and discussing spending money and some of the plans that they have and giving advice on that. So it's currently being spent.
And is the account is the money in an interest-bearing account, or is it just a straight checking account, or what?
It's in a specially created fund at the Treasury, so I'm assuming it's in an interest-bearing account, I would think. It's the state Treasury.
Okay. And as you look at a place like the Delta, or like Northeast Mississippi, or like Central Mississippi for that matter, the Gulf Coast, the whole idea of packaging more than one community, more than one attraction, more than one destination. At one time, we were pushing that. Are we still focusing on that the way we once were?
Yes, very much so. You'll hear from a couple of our DMO partners here today, and they can speak a little bit more to that. But yes, they all partner. They do a great job of partnering together. We have a Natchez Trace Compact, which is communities all along the Natchez Trace. We have the Delta group that Kelly will speak to a little bit more about, and they, have all the communities in the Delta. So we have several organizations like that around the state where they, pull their money to market.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other further questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate that. Moving to our next speaker, we have Pat Fontaine, Executive Director of the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association.
Madam Chairwoman and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm Pat Fontaine. I'm Executive Director of the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association. We are the trade association that represents the hospitality and restaurant industries here in Mississippi. Our mission is to unify, foster, promote, and protect the hospitality and food service industries here in Mississippi. How do we do that? By far, our most important mission is government affairs. And many of y'all know my predecessor, Mike Cashin, from his days here at the Capitol. And I'm glad to report that Mike is still involved with our association as our government affairs liaison. So we are also affiliated with the National Restaurant Association. There's dual membership. When you are a member of our association, you're a member of the National Restaurant Association, and what a valuable benefit that has been during the pandemic. The information that they have provided and the services that they have provided through their government affairs team, invaluable to our members here in Mississippi. We also provide a wide assortment of discounted products and services. You'll see on the flyer that I provided anything from property and casualty insurance to group health insurance through United Healthcare, music licensing discounts, Office Depot discounts. These are available to our rank and file members. Why is that important? A reminder that the profit margins for restaurants are very slim. For a full-service restaurant not serving alcohol, they range between 4% and 5%. For those establishments that do serve alcohol, you can almost double that, 8 to 10%. Pennies matter. So if you can save money on any of these services that are utilized by our restaurants, that's an invaluable benefit. And if you take advantage of many of these, it's going to pay for your membership in our association. So once again, these are designed to help our members succeed and survive. Education and training is another key component of our mission. And I provided to you a little card here on ProStart. And if y'all are not familiar with ProStart, this is a 2-year high school curriculum that was developed by the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation. It has been adopted by the Mississippi Department of Education. It's currently being taught in around 40 of our high schools. It is a 2-year program, 2 components of it, culinary arts and food service management. So the program is designed to help those students who want to immediately enter into the industry post-high school to do so, and then also for those students who are seeking a secondary education in culinary arts or food service management to allow them access to that. So we're very proud of ProStart, and it's our goal to help better educate and train students here in Mississippi. Also, we offer a variety of training programs for our members, everything from customer service to financial management, basically anything that they need to succeed in their operations, we're there to help. We've been a resource for information throughout the pandemic, through our website, through our social media outlets, through our email blast. We have tried our best to keep everybody informed of the changes as they've taken place. You'll see also a little piece on the seafood trail, and that's quite a story there that my predecessor Mike began this back in around 2013 as a result of grant money received from BP. Of course, their efforts was to help promote Gulf seafood following the accident there in the Gulf. We've built upon that to not only promote Gulf seafood, but to help promote our member restaurants that serve it. So the Seafood Trail currently has around 95 participants. And we have a dedicated website to help promote it, also a mobile app, and we utilize our social media outlets to promote it as well. And so where are we today with restaurants in Mississippi? Chip reported from special tax collections, not that significant hit as you would anticipate, being restricted to 50% occupancy. Some of our members, they've done an excellent job throughout the pandemic. They've pivoted their operations to focus on takeout and delivery. Also with the ability for alcohol sales in leisure and recreation districts, that's helped out some of our members tremendously. The City of Jackson, that has been a huge help to our members during this time. Some of our smaller independent operators, they've been hit hard. They have been surviving on the PPP and EIDL loans that they received, but restaurants were designed to operate at 100% capacity. And for a small independent operator, without external funding, it's only a matter of time. And so kind of where we are today, members are anxiously awaiting to see what will happen in Washington, D.C. Is there going to be another round of relief coming? Because if not, these next 3 months, they're going to have a decision to make. Sales aren't going to be up for them where they need to be, and the funding is being depleted. So some are facing that decision here very soon. Any questions?
Senator Jordan.
I do not have any hard numbers to share with you at this time. We have not seen the closures that we anticipated initially, not yet. As I say, many are going to be making that decision in the coming months. We actually, as an association, in March, ceased our dues collections. And basically, we just resumed those this month, September. So, and we're aware of the circumstances. So we are not going to terminate a membership if they can't pay their dues at this time. So to be able to say, as far as our membership, how we've been impacted, we'll have to see at a later date. But as far as the closures that we are aware of, really, here in Jackson, Kyoto Japanese Steakhouse, they decided to close their doors. They were a long-standing member since I've been with the association directly and indirectly since 2004. I'm aware of a handful of others across the state. So the impact is forthcoming to be determined. The National Restaurant Association has been in close contact with the CDC throughout the pandemic, done an excellent job in conveying information to us. Do not have, any, of course, and also in talking with state officials as well, the big concern coming up is flu season, and how will that affect the number of cases? So. Oh, I would say much greater than that. I would say we're probably, at some capacity. I would have to say we're at least at 85% in operation, currently operating. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you were asking what the percentage of restaurants are operating in our state. Oh, no, sir, no, sir. The the capacity restriction's at 75%. Yes, sir. Like I said, I'm sorry I misunderstood your question.
Any more questions for Mr. Fontaine? All right, Senator Horn.
Mr. Fontaine, you know, we thought we were doing a great thing with the Back to Business grant program. It's been fraught with a lot of problems. They're very slow in getting the money out. They find reasons to say no a lot of times. Have you heard many complaints from your members about this particular program that is supposed to provide up to $25,000 in grants to small businesses?
Yes, sir. I think initially, when the program was launched, it had a provision that if you had received PPP, idle loans, or business interruption insurance, that the amount of that grant would be reduced by half. And I think that deterred a lot of our members from making the application. Not to mention just restaurateurs are very busy people. When they walk into their restaurant until the time they leave, they're inundated with customers, vendors, employees. So to take the time to make the application for the grant when you could only receive up to 50%, I think that deterred a lot of our members from making application. I have heard from several members. We sent out communications, about the deadline to make application. Several of them responded. I made application when it was first available. I have not heard a word, either asking questions about my application, denying it, accepting it, silence. And that's been a message heard from many of our members.
Thank you for that. One final question, ask you the same question as the MTA folks. Has your organization established a policy or a position with regard to the Division of Tourism being split out from MDA as a standalone agency?
No, sir, we have not.
Whose idea is this? That's an unfair question.
I cannot answer that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions for Mr. Fontaine? Thank you for coming today, then. We appreciate the update. And personally, I'm excited to see this about the program in the high schools to train young people to be professionals in the restaurant business. That's excellent news. Next, we're going to hear from a couple of folks who are actually giving us local perspective. We're going to hear from Kelly Davis and then from Marlo Dorsey. Kelly is from Cleveland, which of course is a bright spot in the Mississippi Delta, and we look forward to her update.
Well, thank you for saying that. I am a little biased, but I will not argue with you on that point. So yes, I am here. I'm Kelly, and I'm here to give you a little update on what's going on the local level. I am from Cleveland. I'm the director of tourism there, but I'm going to sprinkle in a little Delta information too. Just got some updates from some of our partners, but just alluding to what Rochelle mentioned earlier and Chip. But yes, Cleveland is part of what we call Visit the Mississippi Delta. We actually have a collaboration that's been going on for over 30 years, which, you take a bunch of small communities that don't have large budgets, and you have basically a membership. And what that membership does is form an organization where it allows us to advertise and to reach a larger market than we would normally be able to on our own. And I think one of the best things about that is we know that the Mississippi Delta the name is known around the world. And Cleveland, we do have an airport. Now, we don't land a lot of planes in that airport, so we know that people have to drive to get there. And sometimes you do see planes land there, but So, you know, we work better as an entity. There are 31 Clevelands in the world, 31. Try that with marketing. You wouldn't believe the phone calls I get, you know, complaining that, you know, the Ruth's Chris was bad over by the Ritz-Carlton. I'm like, I think you have the wrong Cleveland. So we do have a unique responsibility to our area to market it. And I think, you know, kind of like we talk about with the staycations, the people who live there sometimes don't even experience or understand the value of where we are. And I always tell people, go to Dockery Farms, go look at the sign-in book, and you'll see people from Brazil, from Spain, from Germany, from Sweden, from Wisconsin on any given day. So just think about the place that you're standing and how important it is to people all around the world. So we do encourage people to get out and visit our own areas. Although, you know, international travel obviously is a little bit on hold right now. And so what we are seeing are tons of road trippers. We're seeing people from everywhere from a 200 to 400 mile radius. And we're lucky being on the Blues Highway, Highway 61, that we see a lot of that Memphis to New Orleans traffic. And so we get a lot of stopover through that. Spring and fall are normally huge seasons for us. Spring was, obviously, it was a wash. Fall has been a little bit challenging, but as a lot of creativity comes from the Delta, we've seen that too in our different organizations. So Clarksdale has tons of festivals, especially blues festivals throughout the fall. And what we have seen is they normally have live blues music 7 nights a week. Well, now they've changed that to a virtual component, and they're bringing that to people all over the world at any given night. So what they're doing is reaching through that computer wherever somebody is and saying, hey, you know, I want to go there when I can because I love the feel of this. And blues festivals, also, they've become smaller, more distant, and a little bit more spread out, but people are coming up with some very, very creative ways to still have people visit responsibly while also maintaining what makes them special. And then the Grammy Museum actually had their first public program. So the Grammy Museum is in my town. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then the Greenville, the Blues and Heritage Festival actually went virtual for the first time. So I think that was a learning curve for everyone, you know, in all of these things, but we're figuring out this technology very quickly. And I love that people have been able to adapt and still bring that brand to people from all over the world who want to experience it. Let's see, Greenwood Hotel, kind of got an update from them. Their weekend travel is definitely picking up with the Alluvian and also the Viking Cooking School. We kind of talked a little bit about some movies were mentioned earlier, but because a lot of these other places have been really big hotbeds for the virus and maybe a little bit more crowded, Mississippi is actually getting a lot more looks now on movie locations, and I think Greenwood's seeing a little bit of that right now, so that's very exciting. Hopefully they will keep us updated on that. In Indianola, maybe y'all know a little bit, but the B.B. King Museum is doing an expansion, and they've been working on that for a little bit, and it's about 80% complete right now, and they expect to have the fabrication phase for their events starting in October, so that will be super exciting, and then the grand opening in summer of 2021. Hopefully we're with 100% capacity, and fingers crossed on that, but during this time, they're slowly working on that, and they are open with modified hours, just as the Grammy Museum is. So for us in Cleveland, we have actually seen our numbers increase over the last couple of months. We obviously saw a slowdown with everything shut down, but it's been interesting to see how many people have come to Cleveland from places like, Memphis, Senatobia, Oxford. We have a new Cotton House Hotel in downtown Cleveland that's really beautiful. It was our first boutique hotel in downtown Cleveland, so you're seeing more of that staycation type, people from Jackson, but our local restaurants are figuring out how to make it work. They are doing, to-goes and doing outdoor dining, and our locals have really, really supported our restaurants. And I think also, I told somebody the other day, I said, well, think about all the people that normally go on vacation in the summer. You had a lot of those people that were staying in town, so they were eating locally, and they were maybe doing some things differently than they have in the past. We also have a brand new property called the Lyric. It's the Lyric Hotel in West End District. What it also brings to us is huge meeting space, and so we're able to go after a new market, which are meetings and conventions, tons of breakout space. We're very, very excited about that. It's actually past Delta State. And so we've got some new opportunities there in Cleveland, and it's really great to see the growth. I think that the Delta has been able to go after new markets with the Grammy Museum opening, which actually has a new exhibit with Royal Studios opening on October the 1st. So that's in partnership with Memphis, which is kind of our sister to the north, and we're working on a partnership with them right now. They are opening with limited hours as well, and I mean, they've seen visitors as far away as Las Vegas. So people are wanting to get out of their states, especially if they have a little bit stricter lockdowns, I think. So we have seen some people from some states that we normally wouldn't necessarily have seen. So we also are working on a project of Tureen Landing in Bolivar County, and we are going to welcome the steamboats there, hopefully in 2021 when they get back rolling. And it will be a viewing pavilion of the Mississippi River, place that people can go, and it's, iconic. It's absolutely iconic, and we all know that. But to have visitors have a place to go and see, and then also have the riverboats be able to bring visitors to the Grammy Museum, to Cleveland, to stops all around the Delta is going to be really important. It's just like a big highway, basically, that is just getting utilized as far as visitor traffic goes. I know Vicksburg and Natchez and Greenville and Tunica have seen some of that, but it'll be exciting to bring those people in some new markets. We talk a little bit about the Blues Trail. That's one great thing that the Delta has had to offer during this, a lot of this road travel, open air. Blues Trail is one of the biggest living history museums really in the world, and one of the most creative, and we all know that. It brings, I think probably everyone in our community has got one. We've got about 18 in Bolivar County alone, and it just allows people to travel at their leisure. The information is there. It's not, I always tell people, it's not the Disneyland of the blues, it's not the Disney World, this is not fabricated, this is authentic experiences that people are truly craving. And I think that gives us a unique opportunity, especially with this recovery fund, to bring in different markets. And I know for us in Cleveland and some other small Delta communities, it will be a huge shot in the arm of being able to reach out and do some different things than we haven't been able to before. Freedom Trail, obviously, and working on itineraries for people to come and experience the Delta as they would like to. So that is just a little update of what we've got going on the ground. And yes, sir.
Jordan?
Yes, sir. I have a question. I heard this before you were at Saturday. They have I think the comment was from
That's right, and it's so interesting to me too. We take for granted driving through the fields every day, and that's cotton, that's soybeans, that's corn, that's whatever. But when people come, especially that aren't from an agriculture area, they want to see what cotton looks like. They want to understand the different aspects of what's the growing season and why do you plant things at different times. And there's actually some really unique people that are creating things like virtual tours. When you're driving through the fields, it will say on your left, You know, this is how it starts out. This is the process. This is what, you know, happens when, this is when you cut it. This is when things are in season. And I think that we take for granted the agritourism perspective. And so I know that that is actually, some people are really working on that in their own communities. You know, yes, you've grown corn, but if you're not going to cut it and make a corn maze, I mean, these are things that people want experiences. Talking about restaurants, my stomach was, I was a little scared to get up here because I felt like if my stomach starts growling and I get caught on, you know, camera, that's not going to be good. But we have some of the best food, you know, on the planet. And Anthony Bourdain will tell you that right off the bat, or he could. Bless his soul. But, you know, we get a lot of questions too. We don't want to eat at chain restaurants. Like, where would you go? And I'm very honest when I say, well, you eat where a local eats. I mean, we don't really have chain restaurants. We have so many home-owned restaurants. Some of them are, I will never, my family's from Greenville, and my mom is, and I will never forget pulling up at the original Doe's the first time, and I was like, where have you taken me? Well, then, you know, we go all the time now, and you just really cannot replicate those things. I know a lot of people have tried to replicate a Doe's, but it hasn't been as successful as the original. So we understand that culinary tourism is tourism as well. And so we do embrace what we have, and continuing to tell the stories that we may not have told well, that we know that people are hungry and interested for, and we have the assets there. So it's all about bringing people together and connecting the dots in the Delta and moving people around, because we know they're not just going to land in one spot and jump out.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? Well, Kelly, thank you. I think you've given us a really good perspective on how things are coming along in the Delta. We appreciate that. And now we're going to move towards the south. Marlo Darcy is going to talk to us. She's got a report about what's happening in Hattiesburg South.
Well, hello, everyone. Madam Chairwoman, Ms. Chastinall, Curry, distinguished Senate members and House members, thank you all for having the DMO organizations represented today as part of your Tourism Matters discussion. So DMOs are the destination marketing organizations. We are funded by a local special levy tax. We like to call it performance-based funding because the more people that eat in our hotels or eat in our restaurants and stay in our hotels, the more dollars we receive. It's an honor, certainly, to be here today to represent my colleagues throughout the state, to share with you our thoughts on the industry from the local destination level and what our vision is for a recovery path forward. So without further ado, I'd like to recognize a few of my colleagues who are here today. Mr. Ricky Thigpen, who is the Executive Director, President of Visit Jackson. Also with us, we have Mr. Milton Segura, if you'll please stand, sir, the CEO of Coastal Mississippi. Miss Laura Beth Strickland, who does a fine job as Executive Director in Visit Vicksburg. And of course, you heard from Kelly Davis earlier from Cleveland. I'd also like to give a special shout out to the many individuals who are directors watching on the YouTube channel now in the 7th inning stretch of today's hearing, who are holding down the fort in their destination. So a lot of us have really worked very hard over the last several months, and I'd like to share some of that with you about the challenges we faced. I'd also like to talk a little bit with you about the opportunities that we see. What can we do strategically to really make the most out of coming out of this pandemic? And what are some specific key priorities that we can achieve together so that we can look back on this moment in time and know that we all did everything that we could to rise together out of the worst economic and public health crisis we have all found ourselves in. So with that, if I can please, and thank you, Mr. Thigpen, for handing out our handout. I like a handout. I don't know about all of you, but I like to be able to take notes on something, follow up on something, and keep us all on the same page. So if you can, you have a handout. Mine has a few notes on it. back in front. And then you also have a summary chart here of something that I'd like to reference very shortly with you on the catastrophic losses the state of tourism has seen in the last 6 months as the business disruption effects of COVID-19. So if we can, let's talk a little bit about the challenge. So according to a report published by U.S. Travel and Tourism Economics, Mississippi's portion of the overall travel sector losses now exceeds $2 billion. So that's billion with a B. And what does that mean for you fine folks sitting here in this room? That means $200 million in lost state tax revenue. Okay, so we can all feel as we are thinking and envisioning where do we go from here. We know that we are down about $200 million in tax dollars because our tourism economy has shrunk. So this sharp visitor spending decline created a damaging ripple effect, and we know this. The leisure and hospitality industry, of course, was the hardest hit. So I'd like to share some U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers with you. August numbers tell us that unemployment does continue to rebound. Overall, the U.S. unemployment figures are 8.3%. For all industries. The lowest in that is 4.2% in financial. It does not please me to share with you that leisure and hospitality sector was 21.3%. So this sector that we all love, that we work so tirelessly in, that we're doing what we need to do, is nearly 3 times the level of unemployment of what the national average is. So I think we can all agree and attest that we are in a crisis. We know and understand that, and we're all willing to do our part in our communities, with our hotels, with our restaurants, with our tourism attractions, including our wonderful parks, our museums and our trails, to do our part to recover. So we do have an opportunity, and that's what I'd like to share with you today. So in all, more than $20 million in new advertising dollars will be invested in the next few months to promote Mississippi destinations. So where does that money come from? Thanks in large part to all of you for believing in destination marketing organizations. We were able to achieve, Ms. Curry, as you very well know, recovery funding to create the Mississippi Tourism Recovery Fund, where destinations throughout the state, and you'll see those listed on the back of your document that I've shared with you, we have been able to receive a lifeline, some stability financially to be able to help our communities recover, where we would be able to safely begin as the economy reopened, market what we have to offer, show through consumer travel sentiment surveys. People want to travel to safe places that have best practices. People need a mental health break nowadays, and we're the answer for that. You know, we all know what it's like to be cooped up inside and really wanting to get out and travel. What we have seen is that people are only going to travel to those drive markets where they are safe. So my colleagues attested earlier to some of the drive markets that we market in, and those are Nashville, Birmingham, Memphis, Chattanooga, Mobile, Florida, the Florida Panhandle, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, North Shore, New Orleans, and Little Rock. My colleagues had to leave. We have an advisory board meeting at 11, so I apologize on their behalf for the dedicated funding model. So we have that $14 million, and we are each working very diligently in our communities, crafting strategies to safely be able to welcome people back. Now let's couple that with what Mr. Reno and Rochelle Hicks mentioned earlier and Craig Ray yesterday on the dedicated funding model. So thanks to the leadership of the legislature and now Governor Reeves, we have in perpetuity a dedicated funding model for tourism to market our state via Visit Mississippi. So if you add that, approximately what we estimate $6 million, to the $14 million that we have through CARES Act funding, we are now sitting on a golden opportunity. We have $20 million over the next few months to tell our story, to do it on our terms, to showcase all the parts of the state, all the wonderful product we have, to speak positive Mississippi, and to bring people back into our communities, to drive that visitor demand, to help our small businesses recover. So just pause for a moment and think about no other time in our state's history did we have $20 million to tell our story and speak positive Mississippi. So we're sitting on a momentous time in the history of this vital sector that is a significant driver. When we think about how we need to move forward, what I can tell you is I have been so graciously working alongside my counterparts throughout the state. Your executive directors, your CEOs, your presidents of all these organizations throughout the state, we have never been stronger. We have never provided more resources, advice, feedback, best practices, strategic planning, all of these things to be able to really try to come out of this pandemic. And so what we've learned is that we're better together. And so what I'd like to do is just briefly share 3 strategic tourism goals. These come from a culmination of many of my colleagues and also national models that tell us what we need to do moving forward. So we believe that collaborating and working together is really a moment that we all find ourselves in. So this is Mississippi's time to come together as a united front. We're stronger, we're more diverse, we're more resilient, and we're better prepared. I may not have all the answers, but if I can pick up the phone and call a tremendous support network of people throughout the state, together we are certainly better to do that. Number 2, and I know you've heard this many times before, adversity can make you bitter or it can make you better. And as we sit on many of the task force for our mayors, our boards of supervisors, other industry things, and we listen and we hear the heartache and we see the pain in people's eyes because they don't have enough funds to make that bank payment and their restaurant may be closing, or that small shop that they rely on so much visitor traffic is no longer bringing in that revenue that they thought they would have. We need to look at that as an opportunity to turn that conversation around and use our tourism dollars wisely to smartly attract people to the state. So as my dear friend Ricky Thigpen so eloquently said, the status quo is gone. We're being called upon to adapt and pivot. We must seek ways to challenge ourselves and one another in the spirit of goodwill and benefit to rise to a new level in tourism. All the previous models, all the strategic planning and everything that we've done in the past for tourism to attract 24 million people to the state and bring in $6.7 billion, that's gone. That's out the window. My dear friend Milton Segura said, now we have 2 sectors for visitors, people that will travel during COVID and people who will not. And when you really distill it down in those terms, when we can think about the things that we need to be doing at the local, regional, and state level to safely attract visitors back into our destinations, to put people back to work, to generate more tax revenue that we all know we desperately need, we need to all rise to meet that new challenge. Also enjoying higher quality of life by promoting travel and positivity to others. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to be cooped up for several months and not have places to go and things to do. There's a mental health crisis also going on in the midst of this public health crisis. So being a source of joy and light and providing people with a way to be able to find family fun and all the wonderful things with vacationing that brings, it's a great place for us to really focus on and be. Additionally, I know that we talk about reskilling Mississippi, we talk about the race for talent, and we talk about talent attraction and retention. When we are purposeful and we can build strong communities, cool destinations, great places for people to go after they get off work, it's going to be a lot easier to keep those talented people in our communities and not go someplace else. So destination development is certainly a huge part of 21st century economic development. So with that, as an industry, being at the ground level, knowing the numerous amounts of things from CARES Act funding that we have to follow, checks and balances, all of the reporting that we have to do to the Department of Finance and Administration for how we spend these dollars, what we do, we've come up with key priorities at the local DMO level that we want to be able to follow, things that we want to be able to do, things that we've learned by following best practices throughout other successful states and destinations throughout the country, throughout the South. And we'd like to share those with you today, because where do we go from here? How do we smartly and wisely use our resources? Not only our financial resources, but also our human capital resources. So how do we all do that? And how can we measure success if we don't have strategic goals and key priorities? So if I may, I'd like to share 7 of those just briefly with you now. So what are some key priorities that we believe will help make Mississippi's entire tourism sector better recover from this pandemic? Well, we believe that we need to have consistent, longer-term statewide Mississippi branding. We believe that we don't need to change that every few years. Additionally, we would love to see a strategic focus on the state's 5 distinct regions, including its attractions, its offerings, and its tourism growth opportunities. So particularly for us in, being just north of Milton and just south of Rickey, there's a lot of opportunities for us to do things on Highway 49. How do we promote a trail for our parks? How do we talk about our music trails together? How can we keep people here? And just the opportunities are endless to do that. But we need resident experts in tourism in every sector of our state. And when we're talking about our parks, the wonderful presentation that was made earlier, how can we enhance that? Who doesn't love the great outdoors when social distancing is something that we all need to be focused on? So how can we grow and do those things better together? We believe that we need to have collaboration with Visit Mississippi and the DMOs to efficiently and effectively market our regions to appropriate target markets. So we are so thankful, Madam Chairwoman Chastanall and Curry, for the tourism recovery funding that we received. Wouldn't you know it, Governor Kay Ivey also just provided $10 million in recovery funding to tourism as well. So while we are extremely thankful, we also need to be ever vigilant about ensuring that we are making the most of the resources we have. And how do we do that? We do that by working together, because this is a competitive business. I don't know about you guys, but when I go on vacation, I typically have a budget. So I can't just, pull out that card and, keep charging it. So the best places that offer the best marketing, that offer the best itineraries, that match what you're looking for, are where your dollars are going to go. So how we market our state matters. And we just really wanted to share that collaboration with Key on that. So when we're talking about that, more regional travel itinerary development is certainly important. We've seen best practices in other states on how this worked. We've never had an opportunity to do this before because we didn't have a dedicated funding model in place with the state of Mississippi. So as we market at the local level, as Visit Mississippi is that umbrella organization that markets at the state level, working together is truly important. And also, data is king, big data is king. We hear this nowadays. So how can we analyze what we're doing, shift it, adapt it as we need to make sure that we're maximizing our return on investment for the dollars that all of you fine people are investing in tourism at the state level for us? And also training and mentoring at the DMO level to raise capability and improve results across a range of metrics. We've learned so much as we try to smartly and very carefully use the CARES Act dollars that our destinations were given. And we have been on many a conference call. We're a little zoomed out. I know you guys are too on a lot of those things, on trying to find the best ways the newest ways, the most effective ways to all work together. So our destinations, as I said, we've never had the opportunity to really come together as an industry on how we have now. Some of us have been doing this quite some time, and we have some young talent, all that digital advertising like you've never seen it before. And it takes all of us at the different layers working together to be able to drive that home. And lastly, one important thing that I wanted to discuss was an emphasis on destination development and management. In a prior role with tourism, I was a chief marketing officer at the Mississippi Development Authority and had the pleasure of overseeing tourism dollars from 2012 to 2016 with a great group of people who were there. And we did a competitiveness study on tourism in 2013. And what we found is that we had a lot of great product, but we needed to build more. And over the last several years, thanks to many of you championing that, we've done just that. We have more museums, we have more trails, we have more great places to eat, we have more opportunity to provide recreational amenities than we've ever had. Now we have a dedicated funding model in place. So how do we emphasize destination development and management in a smart way to be able to really take these things to the next level? The last thing that I would like to share with you is that throughout the pandemic, the role of destination marketing organizations has greatly shifted to actually become number 2 behind family members and friends for information on how to safely visit. So we are here to do our job to help our communities and our destinations recover, and we are so thankful for all of you providing us with much needed resources through CARES Act funding to do so. We look forward to being a partner in your success, and we also look forward to a better and stronger Mississippi, and that we can look back on this moment in time and know that we all rose to the occasion to collaborate so that we could grow. So with that, ma'am, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them or defer to my colleagues.
Question? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you walk us through the limitations and the timeframes of which y'all have to spend the COVID money?
That is an excellent question, and I'd be happy to do that. So House Bill 1790 and 1791 in this special session outlined for us exactly how we could spend that money. And that was provided through U.S. Treasury guidance on ways that we could safely market our communities as a result of the business disruption effects of COVID-19. So we can use these tourism recovery dollars for marketing campaigns outside of our area, so we have to be outside of at least a 50-mile radius, but the majority of that money needs to be spent outside of the state in drive markets. And yes, sir, to answer your question on that, we have until December 30th to spend all those monies. So as you can imagine, it is late nights, weekends to make sure that we are safely and smartly and effectively, but also expeditiously using these dollars to the best of our ability.
And one subsequent question, if you book a contract for advertising and you book it before that deadline date, but the advertising's to run after that, is that permissible?
It is our understanding via U.S. Treasury guidance that if that is typical operating procedure for your organization, then you can continue on as you normally would. So there are case-by-case basis on this, and we have referred to the Department of Finance and Administration on any questions. And if I can just give a shout out to Executive Director Liz Welch and her team for doing such a fine job on guiding us through this process as well.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Marla, thank you so much for coming and bringing your team of people with you. I look forward to hearing from you in more detail about some upcoming travel advantages for Mississippi, so thank you for being with us. We have one last presenter, if she hasn't bailed on us. I wanted those of us who work here at the Capitol, might have to get Michael to go find Brenda Davis. Here she comes. She's the curator of the Capitol. And those of us who work here think of it as our office, but this is such a wonderful resource for Mississippi. I wanted Brenda just to come forward and give us a brief report on why the Capitol is important as a tourism venue. We've spent a lot of money on it recently. I'm sure she's going to tell you something about that. There was work that had to be done. So Brenda, welcome, and would you give us a report about the Capitol, please?
Thank you. Someone just asked me to step out to have a picture made with them. That's a first for me, so I appreciate that recognition. And Madam Chairwoman, Senator Chazanal and Representative Curry, thank you for inviting us to be here today to talk about a subject that is dear to our hearts, our Capitol. I want to give y'all a little overview of our progress over the last few years, because you all may not be aware that we have done things a little differently since 2012. In 2012, the Visitor Services Division, which actually consisted of one full-time employee and one session-only employee at the time, was placed under the curator's supervision, which of course is my position. I was happy to have this. I had watched for years as we were struggling to meet a demand that we could not always meet, and so this was a challenge for me to be able to work with this, as I had wanted to do for a long time. The legislative leadership that made this decision asked that we upgrade our visitor services and that we expand, and that's what we've done, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Immediately, we worked with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, a lady named Elizabeth Coleman, who helped us put together a team of excellent volunteers. Y'all have seen these men and women on the first floor, mostly ladies on the first floor. They are volunteers. Most of them are retired professionals. They come from all different professions, which gives them a range of expertise in different areas. They are there on the first floor to greet our drop-in visitors and to take care of people that come from wherever and whenever. Of course, they're not here right now because of our current situation with COVID, but we, of course, look forward to having them back soon. In the fall of 2012, Kathy Broom joined us as our Visitor Services Director, and Ashley Kinsis, as you may recognize, is our Assistant Visitor Services Director. We also have two ladies that work with us as session-only people, and that's to be able to never turn down a tour group from your district. Even if they call at the last minute, even if they come up and say, I forgot, you know, that happens sometimes, people just forget to call. We always want to be available to take people, regardless of whether it's the minister and his family who've come to offer the opening prayer or a group of 100. We don't care. We're not going to ever say no. In 7 years, 8 years, we have never declined a tour. We have never declined a tour. And as long as we're standing here, we will never decline a tour, even if we have to make it a shortened tour or make some kind of adjustment, because our goal is to take care of everyone. When it comes to the guided tours, the school groups, I look at that as education, of course, because you're talking to young children. And I also look at it a little bit as constituent services, because our job is to get your group to you no matter what we have to do. We have to be sure that we coordinate with both the House and Senate. And I see some of you shaking your head. You know how important that is for you all to be able to speak to the people that come here from your district. In addition to expanding, we have interns that work with us from 2 local universities. Right now, we have two young ladies from Mississippi College. These interns are here for academic credit only. It's not a paid position in any way. And our goal is just to teach them, and they teach us as well. Also, as you're all know, in 2013, we opened our gift shop, which of course is temporarily closed. So I'm very proud of the additions and the expansion that we've made over the last few years. In 2019, we welcomed over 20,000 visitors to the Capitol. We track in numerous ways to be sure that we keep our numbers correct, and last year the numbers were just a little bit over 20,000. These visitors came from all 82 counties. They came from all 50 states, and this is astounding to me. I want to read the exact number. They came from 764 communities from 94 different countries. I heard one of the young ladies that was speaking earlier talking about, I believe it was the lady from the Delta, about Germany and that sort of thing. It still, after all these years, astounds me when someone walks in here from China. And our last visitors, I'm going to read to you real quickly, came from Romania, China, New Zealand, Botswana, Estonia, and Germany. And we also like it when people from Pontotoc come too. And I just pulled Pontotoc because it was the first number up here. No kidding. I love it when we have our international visitors and people from other states, because people from other states, I want to tell you all about their capital. And, you know, they usually say, right, ours doesn't look like this. We love hearing that. But, y'all, when Mississippians come here to see their capital, that is the most special thing. And we have people come here that just amaze me, that say, I'm here from whatever town, and this is my first time to bring my children here, my grandchildren here. That's just exciting to all of us. I have the lady before me said she likes a handout. Well, you got a big handout here from us. This is a packet of information of everything that we have that we give to our visitors. We do have a rack card that our print shop downstairs does. It goes in all of the Mississippi Welcome Centers. It also goes to different community welcome centers. As one of the people from tourism mentioned, a lot of communities have their own welcome center, and so we try to target all of that. We also have an architectural tour guide that takes you through room by room, floor by floor, as far as the chambers are concerned. You can look at each floor. We also have, and I'm most proud of this, and we've worked with MDA on this, and we have been fortunate to talk to a couple of university professors on this, and one individual who helped us. We have our self-guided tours in, of course, English, French, German, Spanish, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. We don't proof them ourselves. We don't know how. We hand them to our visitors and say, if you see a mistake, let us know, because honestly, we can't read these. So a gentleman here was here one time. He and his wife, his daughter and her children were with him. The daughter and children spoke both English and Spanish. The gentleman who was talking to us did not speak English, but he made one correction. We had the eagle, the wingspan on our eagle, at 15 inches. It's 15 feet. A lady from Germany took her pen. She was a teacher. No kidding. She made our corrections with circles and notes. So, we just tell them, help us. We don't know how to proof this. And then we can make our corrections, and then we feel more confident to give these out. But we are just so thrilled to have this opportunity, and of course, everyone is looking forward to better times, which hopefully will be coming next year. We do need still an Italian and a Portuguese translation, so if any of y'all, seriously, if you know of anyone, we need those two translations. Ashley is in charge of our Instagram account. It's been a little bit slow lately because we've not had anybody to come so we could talk about it, but we do post things on Instagram. As I say to Ashley all the time, we means you, because I don't do that. And of course, this goes without saying, none of this could be done without the support of the legislature. We have many team partners in this. I mentioned MDA, I mentioned Archives and History. Everybody helps to facilitate this. I am most excited to announce the thing that's coming next. Because, and this is something we've needed for the longest time, because people cannot come here, it's put this more to the forefront. We have a contract now with MPB. They gave us a proposal to do a virtual tour. We first started out thinking we could buy a little GoPro camera and do it ourselves, and then we decided we didn't know what we were doing. And again, team effort here, the IT people, Joe Sullivan and his team have worked with us on this. So we met with MPB. They gave us a proposal for doing the filming, the editing, the sound, of course, and Kathy and Ashley wrote the tour as a narration to the different spaces in the Capitol. They start on October the 10th, filming with a drone. Capitol Police will be helping us control the traffic so that we don't get any cars or anything that would date it. They will film over 2 weekends outside, and then they will be in here filming. It's going to take about 2 weeks. This is as good a time as any, Michael, to say. We will be heavily depending on our Capitol staff and our porters to help us clear the space. We want everything to look pristine for the footage. And I am just thrilled to be announcing this. And of course, this proposal, once it was given to me, had to go before the Senate Rules and House Management Committees, in which they both approved that, because there is obviously some expense involved here. But it'll be up on our website, hopefully by the end of the year, if not sooner. I hope I have talked to you about everything we needed to hear today, and I am so happy to take some questions if you have questions.
All right. So I did not hear you brag about the award you got.
Oh, it's on my list.
I've been waiting.
Hey, it's on my list. Thank you, Kathy. You're probably sitting back there trying to send me a signal. We did. Y'all, every year since we started this expansion and we joined TripAdvisor and people started writing about us on TripAdvisor, and we also have Google. We get Google reviews. But TripAdvisor seems to be the site that people spend more time concentrating just on the tourism part of it, whereas Google is kind of all over the place about different subjects. But for the last 4 years or so, we have received the TripAdvisor Award of Excellence. This year, we are happy to say, and this is in your packet as well, we are the recipient of the TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Award. And what that means is we've received enough positive reviews that we are in the top 10% of attractions worldwide. That's amazing. Amazing. So thank you, Representative Curry. Any other questions? Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the visitors when they come to the state capitol that we have something very beautiful here. I've had the opportunity to visit state capitals across the country, and I can tell you Mississippi is far above many of the states in the Union. Just one suggestion, this card, if you could develop one for the Christmas decorations at the Capitol, because I think it is just so exquisite and beautiful on Christmas time. If you can develop one of those and put it in there, I'm sure it would help.
And it's funny you said that, because this morning driving in, I was on the phone with the lady who is doing our proposal this year for our Christmas decorations. We do our Christmas decorations in 4-year contracts so that each administration gets a chance to approve, of course, the budget and the overall concept. And so we have someone new, and she's not new to the building. She actually had the contract before, but we like to rotate it around, obviously, to different people. And so when I called her in August, I said, it's hard for me to talk about Christmas in August, but, you start that conversation that early. But thank you for that suggestion. And like I said, our print shop does that. That is a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Ms. Brenda, I just want to say thank you for what you do and your staff does to, when all of our constituents come by, to make us look good. Because y'all are very knowledgeable, you're kind to the students, you're kind to the young folks, the old folks, all in between, and y'all just do a great job. And I just had one suggestion too to follow up with his, maybe that if you're going to do that virtual tour, maybe we could get them to come back at Christmas and do the decorations with a virtual tour too, because every year at Christmas I take pictures and put on my Facebook and social media, and everyone's like, wow, I didn't know that y'all did that at Christmas, and that Christmas tour that we do the first weekend is a treasure that a lot of people just don't know about. But thank you so much.
Thank you for that suggestion. And it is a good suggestion. It would be great if we could incorporate some footage because, I mean, as I said, Representative Miles, we've been talking about this for the longest time to do this, and now this has brought it to the forefront. And so I would rather have it at the end of the year. Well, actually, our Christmas decoration will be up in November, so that's a possibility. We could certainly do that. I hadn't thought of it. That's a great idea.
I believe we have one other question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really have a comment. I just want to thank you, Ms. Davis, and your staff for the outstanding job that you all do. That really, for me personally, you put me in the limelight when someone from my district comes and you all track me down, regardless if I'm in my car, if I'm on my way home. You say, Representative, you need to get back up here. You got somebody to see you. And I really want to personally thank you for doing that, because it means a lot to our constituents, really, when they come here to see us. So I try to make every effort to do that. And I know you all try to make every effort for us to be there when they're here. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I know I speak for Kathy and Ashley when I say that we take that part of it very seriously, because I realize, as I said in the beginning, how important it is that you speak to, especially the young people, and also everyone that's from your area. Yesterday, I had a vendor come here to look at something for me, and he told me in the course of the conversation, he's 58 years old. He said, the last time I was in this building, I was in high school on a trip, the last time I was here. And I said, well, it's, time you come back. So I took him around, and we had a little quick tour in addition to him giving me a quote. So that's a good thing.
Senator Jordan?
Yes, sir. The largest crowd ever to be on these grounds. Yes, sir. Mr. Meredith's March. Is that what we're referring to? Oh, yes, sir. I was not here in '05. I've actually
You all
seen
weren't
that.
the only ones who invited BB.
Now, gentlemen.
The state capitol. I'm sure. I'm sure it was. I actually started here in January of '06, but I have seen the footage of the visit that you're talking about. It's in the film at the B.B. King Museum. I've seen it, and as I looked at it, I of course regretted that I was not here on that day to be a part of that. I thought you were referring to the March Against Fear, which we have a Capitol Rally March. That is, I think, the largest documented crowd on the grounds. And let me say this real quickly. You know, the other part of you all know that the curator's job is to be involved in some capacity in all projects, large and small. I work, of course, with DFA and with a lot of other people, our Capitol architect. And the other thing we hear from visitors, you know, we've got always a project going on. I'm pointing this way because, you know, there's one going on out there right now. They tell us, and we hear this quite a bit, that they appreciate that we're taking care of our Capitol. And then the comments I've heard is they'll either tell us about their restoration efforts or they'll tell us that they wish their Capitol did have restoration efforts, that they need it. And that's distressing to me when I hear that, you know, that some capitals don't do. So we're doing it right by doing it a little at a time. And it's been 40 years since we've had a true, complete restoration.
Burl
So
Smith did the previous one.
40 years.
I think Burl Smith was the person who oversaw the previous one. His daughter's a friend of mine.
Yes, Burl Smith was the designer. He sure was. I would have liked to have had a conversation with him.
He was a fascinating man.
I've heard
He
a lot
took my
about
art
him.
students on a tour of this Capitol right after it was finished, and it was fascinating to hear him talk about it to these children. I should have recorded it because I didn't realize how historic it was. Never thought I would be here in the capacity of an elected official.
Right.
So.
Well, and I didn't mention this, but let me say real quickly, going back to the beginning when we rewrote the tour was focused on the dimensions of the building and the architecture and that sort of thing, and that's great. But the story of how this building came to be built here and the people who led the entire construction from groundbreaking to dedication took place over a period of 28 months. 28 months. They broke ground here in January to March of 1901. They completed this building in June of 1903. They had the dedication moved in August under one governor, one state house commissioner, one architect, and one contractor. And they were all friends at the end of it. They just loved each other, or at least they put it on paper that they did. That is part of the reason that we are now in 2016, you all probably know this, we were recognized as a national historic landmark. And part of it was because of our unique construction, turn of the last century. It was state of the art back then. And the fact that it was done in such a short period of time. And apologies to my friends in Arkansas, but theirs took 15 years to complete. 15 years. Thank you all so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. Are there any other questions of Ms. Davis while we've got her here? Well, feel free to go by and see the staff members who help give these wonderful tours. I personally would like to thank everyone for participating in this. I think we've learned a lot during the last couple of days. As I say, I hope this is the beginning of the discussion and not the end, and I want you all to go digest what you've learned, and let's see how we can enact some good legislation to make these things become a reality. Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, if any of our presenters would send you some information, I would appreciate it if you would either disseminate it to all the members or disseminate it to House Chair so we can have that information.
Let's see, I'm not sure. I've never done a hearing before. Do we need a motion? Chair. Thank you all. Don't pick up my purse. This